Let me bring my Scorpio energy into the room and talk about the deep heart stuff. My name is Chaplain Wendy. I'm a licensed professional practitioner here at this center, and I'm an endorsed chaplain for Greater Center for Spiritual Living. I am also a student of bio-spiritual focusing. Let me just tell you what that is a little bit. It's important to this talk. It is the process of using contemplative listening to hear what is happening in your body. And I have to tell you that this particular talk is completely informed by my body. And I'm also going to ask for some grace for you guys. It's been a rough few days. I have a cat that's very sick, and last night in the early morning she had a seizure. So I'm kind of unsettled. She's okay right now, and I'm a little bit sad, which is an interesting emotional place to come to you and talk about being mad. The topic today was anger, and when the Rev first asked me to do this talk, I said, they said, take a day in August. So I looked at what was on the screen, and there was a white screen with some words, and anger quite literally jumped out and started dancing around. And I went, oh, that must be for me. It was a little bit of a pick-me moment. And I thought, okay, now we get to use this bio-spiritual focusing. I'm bookending this talk with a poem by David White. And I want us to hear it now and then hear it after the talk. And I would love feedback if it sounds different to you following. Anger is the deepest form of compassion for another, for the world, for the self, for a life, for the body, for a family, and for all our ideals, all vulnerable and all possibly about to be hurt. Stripped of physical imprisonment and violent reaction, anger is the purest form of care. The internal living flame of anger always illuminates what we belong to, what we wish to protect, and what we're willing to hazard ourselves for. That's a good one, huh? So the monthly theme is the fear and the furious, and today's topic title was Anger as a Force for Change. And I thought I would be fierce, and I would come out with this energy, but actually I find myself calm and gentle because I've been spending the last 3 to 4 months exploring anger and what it means for me and how it can teach me. There was a part, I didn't know after all of this time ruminating on this, because this was months ago that I got asked to do this talk. All this time ruminating on it, I didn't know how I was going to filter or align all of the words that needed to be said today. And then Spirit gave me a hint. Because one of the blurbs CSL puts out for this talk is, how can I honor my anger and still choose love? And if I tell you that my body stiffened up like a toddler in fierce anger, I couldn't even move. And I thought, wow, why does that bother me so much? So I asked my body. And my body, somewhere in the abdomen, started to relax and said, there's something missing. And I went, oh. So I took the information that I had from my rumination, and I took my research, and I'm going to share with you the things that I learned that helped me, and hopefully they help you. And feel free, if you already know this, to roll your eyes. First, anger is not an emotion. Or, excuse me, anger is an emotion. Got that wrong. You're like, what? Yeah, no, got that wrong. Thank you for the grace. Anger is not a feeling. Emotions and feelings aren't the same thing. Emotions are the raw data that we feel in our bodies when presented with the current reality. And feelings are the stories that our brain tells us. It literally floods us with information trying to make sense of what we're experiencing. What our brain tells us about that emotion. So it's your thoughts, your opinions, your traumas, your memories. All of it comes flooding in, and it obscures the actual emotion and the purpose of the emotion. I recently had an experience with this because somebody really pissed me off on Friday. And I had this rush of emotions, and I sat with it like I'm supposed to as a baby bio-spiritual focuser. I went, why am I so angry? And I let the image come into my mind. And it was something that happened to me when I was 26. And it totally clouded the anger that I experienced, kind of obscured it. And yes, I did have a valid reason to be angry at the person that pissed me off. But also, I didn't have any reason to be angry about what happened to me when I was 26. I had already done that work. And when I sat with it quietly, I was filled with compassion for me when I was 26, compassion for me here at this age that I don't want to disclose out loud, and for the person who made me angry. I had this sudden, unimaginable clarity, and I realized that however this person spoke to me, it said nothing about who I was or what had happened. It said everything about whatever it had happened in his body. And so he was having the same experience. He was having an emotional reaction in his physical body that was suddenly flooded with all of these feelings that might not actually even relate to what his emotional response was for. And third thing, our bodies are some of our greatest teachers if we allow them to talk to us. Now, Rev Grace talked about our biomechanical human suit. We quite literally, as spiritual beings, can't be present on this planet and experience this planet and learn without them. I mean, it would just be energy, right? Wafting and wafting, unable to reach whatever we needed to reach, unable to smell, unable to laugh, to hug each other. We need these suits. And so they become teachers if we start to listen. Now, as I said, I was a scientist before I was a chaplain, so I have some hypotheses. Hypothesis number 1. If we believe that the universe was created from an energy or a being that is infinite and everywhere present, which is what we teach and what we believe, and that everything was created from that energy or being so that it could know itself better, then our bodies were created to inform us of that being and also of our connection to that being. Therefore, because hypotheses are if, then, therefores, therefore, our emotions give us very necessary information. Grief teaches us about loss and sadness, right? We experience loss, we get filled with grief, and we become very, very physically tired. That's completely normal. When we're in fear, our blood pressure goes up, our adrenaline goes up, not unlike anger, and we run, we fight, flight, or freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze, right? It's a physiological response. Now, the stories that are going on in your head about that are your feelings. They're totally separate from your emotions. And so it's very clarifying to be able to separate them. But anger as raw data, what does it tell us? Anger is our body's experience of injustice. Think about the last time you were pissed off. And if you can do it, and just briefly, like separate all the feelings that came up and just feel the anger, it will tell you why it's angry. And it's a self-protection. It's an indicator. It's an alarm bell that lets you know that something is amiss outside of our physical body. As a sacred indicator, anger is not a flaw in us. and it's not a flaw in our spiritual practice. In fact, it's a very valid spiritual practice to sit with your anger and to just be present to it. And so when I go back to the question, how can I honor my anger and choose love? Why did that physically piss me off? Because I have this little button that gets pushed when somebody tells me that something is separate. And it's happened since I became a practitioner. Because it posits that anger is something other than love. Hypothesis number 2. If the energy or being that I call God created us and is everywhere present, and we have given it attributes like love, unconditional love, harmony, peace, these are things we attribute to God because they cannot be separated from God, they cannot be divided into something less, so they must be God. Then everything it created is love. We even call God love with a capital L. So denying our anger, denying other people's anger, listening to the stories that we had when we were younger, like, I don't know about you guys, but I was told I could not be angry. I was told that anger was somehow a personal failing of mine. I was told I was unreasonable in my anger. Is denying a source of self-love that might be so deep and so foundational that it transforms me. And I'll tell you that in these last few months of doing this, working on this talk, that's exactly what happened. Because I can now sit in the things that made me angry, and I can have compassion erupt out of it, instead of anger erupting out. So if anger is already love, we don't need to transform it. We just need to recognize it. So we need to get our stories out of the way, and that's the challenge. And we need to open up to what is the emotion itself is trying to teach us. And how does that work in the bigger world? Because I was looking at the news today, and there was a lot of terrible, hateful things that happened yesterday and today. And one of the things that happened for me since I've been doing this practice of biospiritual focusing and sitting in my anger, I started to feel, I recognized the anger that was out there as undealt with anger. And I imagined my anger that now is so seemingly grateful that I'm paying attention to it and I'm holding it. I imagined that being trapped inside someone's body and then not being able to express itself in the way that it was designed to do. I see you raising your hand, Marcia. And body-wise, yoga, any kind of sitting. And when you trap it into your body, it becomes other things, and it erupts and becomes violence. It erupts, it becomes war. It becomes school shootings. It becomes road rage. It becomes domestic violence. So as we sit in our anger, maybe not honoring it and choosing love, but choosing to recognize it as already love within us, as a source of unconditional love for ourselves. I mean, its purpose is to protect us first. So what if it's a source of deep, profound, fierce love for yourself? And when you sit with it, it informs you that, yeah, this is unfair. I get it. How do we, well, when I look at this world and this undealt with love, what I see is, or undealt with anger, I see unrequited love. Think Romeo and Juliet, right? That had a terrible ending for Romeo and Juliet specifically. I see people who haven't had the awareness or haven't recognized that they were already imbued with a source of love for themselves, a self-worth that goes beyond anything that we talk about. And it's innate. We're born with it. We can't be separated from it. You're stuck with anger. We've been getting pissed off since our diapers were wet and no one changed them, right? This is anger, and it's completely natural. And as an indicator, a sacred indicator, anger becomes relevant and not wrong. Thich Nhat Hanh has a really awesome book called Anger, and he has a very good instruction for us on how to handle that. He says, when you get angry, go back to yourself and take very good care of your anger. And if you've ever heard him speak, it's very soft. So whisper that in your mind. When you get angry, go back to yourself and take very good care of your anger. And when someone makes you suffer, go back and take care of your suffering, your anger. Do not say or do anything. He uses a metaphor that anger is like mud, which unpleasant, but is absolutely necessary for a lotus flower to grow and bloom. You don't need to suppress your anger. Rather, acknowledge it and nourish it until it transforms into the compassion that is its purpose. So, back to that poem. If I've communicated what I needed to, this may sound different to now. Anger is the deepest form of compassion for another, for the world, for the self, for a life, for the body, for a family, and for all our ideals. All vulnerable and all possibly about to be hurt. Stripped of physical imprisonment and violent reaction, anger is the purest form of care. The internal living flame of anger always illuminates what we belong to, whose we are, what we wish to protect, all the beings that we love in our planet, and what we are willing to hazard ourselves for. The final hypothesis today is also known as a spiritual mind treatment in Center for Spiritual Living. So take a deep breath. If God is all there is, and God is all there is, and I am one with God, and honestly, we are all one, then I declare that my anger and your anger is a divine, sacred activity and a fierce, transformative love. I honor my anger with listening, and I allow it to transform me for myself, for you, and for the whole world. Thank you, God, and so it is.